This was by far the most difficult script for me to structure in a comprehensible manner, so enjoy. This week I've made some noteworthy progress, actually getting the second chapter to a playable, if incomplete state. But more notably, this week has been the culmination of my struggles with actually taking time to work on this project. It was bound to happen eventually, I suppose. I've been doing game dev for a couple of years now and experienced that loss of will to continue plenty of times. I have dozens of projects I put some effort into designing but never did anything more with. Tens of them litter my hard drive as projects with half a skeleton of the most basic of mechanics. And quite a few have even reached the halfway point then went nowhere. I've lost count of the times I started something driven by sudden inspiration and stopped working on it just as quickly when the obstacles began mounting up. And I was disappointing in myself every time it happened, sure, but I never did anything about it. After all, what's one more failure on a pile already so huge? With this project too, the thought of abandoning it crossed my mind. Why not put it aside if it's not working? But it was just one of many thoughts about the issues with it and potential solutions and my frustrations. So I went ahead and I wrote it all down. One of the last thoughts being that there are people who watch these devlogs, there are people who have downloaded the demo of the ROM hack, but ultimately I haven't received a single piece of feedback, positive or negative. If I abandoned it, it seems like no one else would care enough to be disappointed, just myself. But at the same time, this wouldn't be just another disappointing failure thrown onto the pile and forgotten. Because this project is primarily a story. A story about creation, about the struggles that come with it and about overcoming them. When I began writing it, I saw it as a symbol, in a way. Ilma is a goddess new to the process of creating a world of her own, and I was telling her story using tools that I was new to. I knew I would run into tons of problems and various complications and bugs. So Ilma too is facing opposition at every step. And I knew that I would have flashes of inspiration where a great idea comes out of nowhere, or even out of what seemed like a problem. I knew that I wanted Ilma to eventually face a situation where all would hang on a thread, where to give up would be the easier and so much more appealing option. And I knew that this was meant to be a classic story, that this darkest hour would pass, and that her fight would continue with strength renewed. What I didn't know is that this too would end up being a reflection. Sure, it wasn't that bad for me, I didn't truly consider giving up on this project, but the thought did cross my mind and joined all the others when I wrote them out. And when I looked at it, another thought came to me. A question. If I abandon this project, if the story about creation will be left unfinished, if the story of its creation will end in a failure, then what will I ever finish? If I were to drop this project, it would be an order of magnitude harder to pick it back up than it is to continue right now. So I made the only decision I could. No, I can't give up creation, not this one. So I sat down and I worked. And the dread of frustrating work that made me procrastinate way too much melted away. Sure, there are some blocks I run into once in a while. This script has certainly been one of them, which is why despite having a day off today, I'm still writing it at 9 PM and will almost certainly take until 1 AM to upload it again. But I managed to remind myself that I do in fact enjoy most of this. It took me a month to make a map, add playable characters, bosses and associated items. But mark my words, by the next week's devlog, I will have the playable demo updated with the next chapter. Did you ever stop to think that devlogs are meta in a way? Documenting a story about how another story was created? I'd guess not, but I certainly have over the last few days. And I do want to thank you for taking interest in this story about a story about a story. Until next week, farewell.